that intermittent fasting has such an important impact on your hormones? I think this is going to be the most disappointing answer for you. Oh my God, I said if you really have to. During intermittent fasting, this hot fluid really helps in making you feel energetic.
Hello and welcome to Health Bites presented by RedFM Podcasts. In this podcast, we talk about health trends and see what's actually real and beneficial and what's just the hype. So in this episode, we're talking about intermittent fasting, which is all over the internet right now. Like everybody is skipping meals, talking about eating windows. But is it for you, or you're just messing up your metabolism? So in this episode, we are breaking down intermittent fasting with a clinical nutritionist, Lovneet Batra. We are going to discuss what this fasting does to your body. Is it really for good health, and can it help weight loss, or are you just starving yourself? So stay tuned as we get into the nitty-gritties of fasting. Hi Lovneet, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am good too. So last episode we talked a lot about hormones, how to keep them in check, what food items can help, what can disturb more hormones. In this episode, we're talking about something that's like from nutritional point of view, I don't know how much importance does it hold, but from trend point of view, I can tell you that it has been trending so much, especially during the lockdown time. So we're going to talk about intermittent fasting in this episode.
Yes. Well, it is definitely that has picked up a lot and has potential benefits also. But as a nutritionist, as a health practitioner, what I always see is that anything that can give you quick result when it comes to weight loss trends very quickly. And intermittent fasting is truly something that goes beyond weight loss. It's not just something that will help you lose weight because it's restricting your timing of eating food, but fasting comes very naturally to our culture as Indians, right? And we associate fasting with a meditative state of mind, and there's a reason for it. Fasting can really help your body reset itself if you're doing it correctly, and that's true for intermittent fasting also.
So it can be effective.
It can be very effective, but it can also be a complete disaster if it is not the right fit for you and if you're not doing it correctly. So I see many people who would eat only for 8 hours out of the 24-hour period. So they are fasting for 16 hours and eating for 8 hours. But then they would start their day of eating at 1 o'clock. And they'll just start with something that is quite inflammatory in nature, say a burger or something from outside like stale food, and then having alcohol or having too much caffeine, and then eating out again for dinner because then they eat late, say their closing window is around 8, 9 o'clock. And then when they're fasting, they're having too much black coffee. So that kind of intermittent fasting is pure disaster. And if you do it in sync with your circadian rhythm, if you do it in a way that you're actually nourishing your body in those 8 hours of eating window, it can be a great way to let your system rest, to let your metabolic pathways pick up and help you mobilize fat and help you utilize energy.
Oh, so when we're talking about intermittent fasting, what is the right way to start it? Like for a beginner?
So first, let's understand how to pick your fasting window, right? I always say this, whenever you're picking your meal timings, you have to keep it in sync with your sleep timings, your appetite, when are you hungry, when are you not hungry, and the timing of your physical activity. So if you are somebody who is working out in the morning, don't fast right after your workout because you have lost the window to nourish your body post-workout. So understanding what timing works for you is very important. Eat in a way that you're eating when you are hungry, right? Eat in a way that is supporting your sleep timing. And I think a very good window to keep for that could be, say, 10 to 6, because then you're eating before sunset, you're eating not too early or not too late.
So what is the best food item to break your fast?
Start with electrolytes first. So it could be coconut water, and then have a probiotic in the morning. So yogurt with your breakfast, or a glass of chaach in the morning, salted chaach. Electrolytes, hydration, probiotics first. And then focus on healthy fats from soaked nuts, so almonds, walnuts, soaked chia seeds, and lean proteins, egg whites, sprouts. Best meals for the first meal when you are going on an intermittent fasting.
And what would be the last meal, best last meal?
I would say if you're doing this for health benefits, then your last meal should be very balanced in terms of your macros. It shouldn't be just protein, or it shouldn't be just fat. So focus on a balanced meal. In an Indian household, that could be, say, a dal chawal with some dahi, or if you're a non-vegetarian, then having fish with rice with lots of vegetables. So these combinations sustain energy, and they are more wholesome in nature. And if you're eating this meal, say around 6 o'clock, then you are quite prepared for the next 16 hours of fasting.
So like, you have a lot of clients who might be doing intermittent fasting. So what are the most common mistakes people make?
The worst mistake is loading up on too much black coffee when you are fasting. So during the fasting hours, people do that to kill appetite or to feel energetic, right? But black coffee, too much caffeine, does not let your system rest. So why do we fast? Basically, it is to help your system rest, right? When we are fasting, our body undergoes cell autophagy, which means that cells are sort of eliminating the ones that are not good and regenerating good cells, right? But if you're constantly having a stimulant, which is caffeine through black coffee during that time, you're not letting your body rest. And that is something which I see many people go wrong with their intermittent fasting. Secondly, I think focus on eating junk when you are allowed to eat, because you tend to just focus on the timings and not the quality of food. Now, another good thing with fasting is it helps you fight inflammation. So when your body is reducing physiological stress, it's also fighting inflammation. But when you are eating these inflammatory foods, you're not letting that happen either. So that's counterproductive.
So can that happen that if you're practicing intermittent fasting, you might feel lethargic, more fatigue?
Yeah, especially in the initial few days of starting the fast, for your body to get used to it, because our hunger is determined by various hormones in our body, insulin, ghrelin, leptin. For those hormones to get used to your fasting timing, the initial 4-5 days you will feel that there is a drop in energy. Also, when we are fasting, the first few days your body is utilizing glycogen, which utilizes carbohydrate metabolism in the body. And when that shift of using glycogen as fuel to using fat for fuel, when your body depletes its glycogen and switches to fat, that in itself leads to that, feeling of fatigue, that switch to ketones for energy. And I think once you pass that stage, then you feel very energetic. So if you are planning to go on intermittent fasting, stay patient for the first 3-4 days, and then it gets much better.
So it can be a little challenging for the initial days.
Yes.
So any nutritional deficiency that exaggerates that?
Stay hydrated and make sure you have good electrolytes in your diet when you are eating. So having a lemonade, salted lemonade, having buttermilk that is salted, having coconut water. These fluids will ensure that you don't feel very low in energy when you are fasting. And don't rely on too much caffeine, because caffeine is actually dehydrating. So you might feel good for some time, but you end up actually stressing your system more.
So as you told about hydration, so should we hydrate more than we usually do, or maybe less, or just stay the same?
So by hydration, I don't mean just water. I think sometimes, especially in monsoon, or if you're in a humid climate, then you have to make sure that you're having not just plain water, but during the eating window, these fluids, because if you have just plain water, you will also reduce the concentration of electrolytes in your system, and then you will feel, again, you might feel headaches, and so just making sure you're well hydrated with electrolytes.
So does skipping breakfast make us feel more energized or more hungry? Is it advisable to do that?
Skipping breakfast. So if you feel hungry in the morning, or if you're working out in the morning, then skipping breakfast, even when you're trying to do intermittent fasting, is not advisable. Now, on a general population, various studies suggest that if you skip breakfast, you are prone to eating more carbohydrate-rich foods during the day, and your nutrient density through the day might be compromised. And if you do eat a good breakfast that has good quality protein, fat, fiber, then you're actually setting up an environment that gives you sustained energy, and you are more in control of your hunger hormones. And I think that in itself can be a great tool, equipment to help you feel in control when you are fasting. I think why fasting becomes very difficult for many people is because our lives are so fast-paced. We are constantly thinking, we are constantly doing, we are in always to-do mode, right? But when you are fasting, your mental state of being should also be more relaxed. That's when you get the most benefit of it. Of course, when you're trying to do intermittent fasting, say for weeks together, you cannot just take off your regular life, but just be more intuitive in terms of your appetite, your sleep quality, your mood in general. And if you do feel that reducing, when you start fasting, you also reduce the food intake in various windows, right? Most people, when we are done with work, say 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, that's when they are most hungry. Or dinner is the meal when they're like, okay, I'm with my family, so I'm going to really enjoy this meal, and I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat. Or, you know, I have had a very stressful day, so I am going to have that one drink. So I feel fasting helps you also not just restrict your timing, but also reconsider many of these things. So if you're eating between 10 to 6, all those things take a hit, and you can have certain withdrawal. But trying to mentally sort of be in a more relaxed state will help you stay on your fasting journey for few weeks at least. I think that's important too, because it helps you regain that balance. It helps you reset your overall, it gives you that good start when you're trying to follow a certain regime.
So if we are making a intermittent fasting schedule for somebody who leaves for work at 9, gets back home around 7, works out in the morning. So what should be the eating window? What should be the fasting window?
So I would say start your first hydrate before your eating window. Have sufficient amount of water, and when you start your eating window, then start with the coconut water. Have a bowl of sprouts. Add a whole egg to your breakfast. Then in between have a citrus fruit. It could be orange, it could be kiwi. Then for lunch, try to have probiotics. So have dahi with either amaranth roti, or dahi with dal chila, or even dahi with bajre ki khichdi. And evening have another fruit, say around 4-5 o'clock. That's a great way to energize, and pair that fruit with your soaked nuts. And then your last meal should be a good balance. So it could be paneer with roti or dal chawal with some ghee, and be done at 6 o'clock.
So we start at what time?
We start at 10 and finish at 6.
Finish at 6. Okay, great. So we talked a lot about eating windows, right? So for someone to decide eating window, we need to know what's the science behind it.
See, when you are fasting, there are certain metabolic changes that happen in your body, right? Number one, we talked about glycogen depletion, which is stored in our liver, which is stored in our muscle cells. When glycogen is depleted and your body starts utilizing fat, triglycerides for energy, it produces ketones. Now, ketones help in building stress resilience. So that helps your body actually reset its ability to recover. It helps you boost your immunity. It stabilizes insulin spikes. Insulin is a hormone when in higher concentration, it actually makes you prone to fat storage. So if you have high insulin levels in your bloodstream, the food that you'll be eating, you'll be storing that as fat. So that changes when you're fasting. So insulin is more sensitive when you do intermittent fasting. Also, it helps your body de-stress itself if you're able to do it in a more nourishing way. And that's what that restricting of eating window does metabolically.
Okay. So when do you suggest people intermittent fasting for weight loss?
It will help you with weight loss because of these changes that happen, with your insulin, making sure that you start utilizing your fat stores. It helps you feel more energetic after you pass that first 3-4 day window. You will see that your energy levels through the day, your mood through the day is more stable. Because for many people, what erratic eating does is that food that you will be eating will spike your glucose, will spike your insulin, then it will create a dip in glucose. So many a times people are just through the day munching without really feeling satisfied. But when you're doing an intermittent fast, it'll help you lose weight, not just because it's restricting your calorie intake, but it's changing the environment inside your body. The hormones that decide when you do eat, whether you store that energy as fat or utilize that energy.
So in the past episode, we've talked about how important fat is for our body functions also. So what is the best time to eat fat when you're doing intermittent fasting?
Start the first meal with fat, especially soaked nuts and seeds. And in your mid-meal, when you're eating your fruit, then pair it with a healthy fat. So soaked chia seeds, soaked almonds, roasted pistachios. And for your main meal also, like in a regular Indian household, how we use ghee or mustard oil, use these oils for cooking. So don't distort your eating balance in intermittent fasting. That's very, very important, because if you lose track of that balance, then you feel very irritable, your mood fluctuations get worse. So it's not just about the timing. I think that's what many people mistake it for. Intermittent fasting is a concept to give your body rest. So you cannot overload your body with stale food full of toxins, such as highly processed food or packaged food that has too many additives in it. So avoid doing that, because what you're doing is you're starving then. You're not fasting. There's a difference between starving your body and utilizing a principle of fasting. If you are fasting, the window that you're utilizing for eating, the quality of food becomes very important. Your state of mind also becomes very important. Because I have seen many people do intermittent fasting, but it takes a toll on their hormones because they are very, very stressed. So if you have highly stressful period of your life, probably that's not the best time to start with intermittent fasting.
Okay, so like the quality of the food matters as much as the timing of the food matters.
Yes, it does.
And like in the past episode, we've talked about a lot of hormones and PMS and period. Is it safe to do intermittent fasting during periods and your PMS?
So if your diet is well planned by an expert, then yes, it is absolutely safe. But if you are doing it on your own and you end up having low calorie diet, which is low in proteins and healthy fats, then it can increase risk of low progesterone and estrogen that can disrupt your menstrual cycle and fertility.
So, like, can intermittent fasting have a long effect on like your period cycle and hormones?
It can. That's why it's very important that when you are eating in that balance. Because I see many people, they do intermittent fasting just as the end goal to lose weight, because they think that, okay, if I do intermittent fasting, I will lose this much weight very quickly, which can be true. But in that, if you're having diet sodas and you're having black coffee and then you're eating outside food which is high in carb and sugar, then it's a recipe for disaster, hormonal imbalance.
So lately I've seen this a lot, that seed oil has become like the new villain.
Yeah.
Like the seed oil used in household recipes, that is also that bad, like the seed oil used in like your packaged food or something like that.
So refined vegetable oil, seed oils are inflammatory in nature. They have more of omega-6 fatty acids. So when we use oils, the profile of different fatty acids should be balanced. That's why no one oil is complete. So in your kitchen, if you're using, I think keeping a mix of two, not mix as in one bottle mix, but using 2-3 different oils for different preparations is important. Ghee, it's a great source of omega-3, but get it from the right source or make it at home. I don't recommend vegetable oil at all, but you can use mustard oil. It's a seed oil, but it is anti-inflammatory in nature. You can use extra virgin olive oil, but it doesn't have a high smoke point. So if you're using salad dressings, if you're using it for drizzles, and it's a great oil. You can use even coconut oil for cooking for Indian food. So just keep these 3-4 oils. In winters, you can also use sesame seed oil. It's a seed oil, but it's not inflammatory. It's important to keep a variety because no one fat is complete.
So like to keep mix of oils in the kitchen?
Yes, keep rotating 2-3 oils at a time.
So one should not fix at one oil?
Yes, yes. And avoid use of refined vegetable oil.
That's the worst.
That is.
So how does intermittent fasting affect our metabolism? Does it boost it or slows it down?
So in the initial 3-4 days, it might slow it down because you are changing your routine. But in a long run, because it helps with sensitivity of insulin, it helps you switch to actually utilizing your triglycerides, your fat stores through ketones. It helps in boosting your metabolism. See, glycogen is a limited fuel, and we tend to continuously sort of reload on glycogen by eating carbs. But when you are doing intermittent fasting, you deplete your glycogen and then you are unlocking fat that has been stored in the body for energy production. So that in itself is such a great boost for your metabolic health. That also helps you keep your hunger hormones in a long run more controlled. So studies have been done on determining how intermittent fasting changes the environment inside your body, which also means it helps you change your metabolic health overall. So it's not just how many calories you're eating, or it goes beyond that calorie math, because you're eating more in sync with your sleep timings, your hunger, the circadian rhythm, and it is limited timing. But for patients who have hormonal imbalances, be it thyroid, who are taking glucose lowering drugs, who are on other medications, then they need to make sure that they have their doctors, their nutritionist on board to understand how they can actually benefit from this. So it can't be self-prescribed. It has to be done at least for the first few weeks with an expert guidance.
So like this is like very trending. So intermittent fasting can, increase your lifespan. Is it true?
Yes, intermittent fasting in fact can increase your lifespan. Like I said, it helps you reset your body through a process called as cell autophagy, which means that you get rid of the bad cells in your body and you regenerate the good cells. That in itself is a process that is anti-aging, so to say, in nature. And if you do intermittent fasting, even you don't have to perpetually be on it, but especially if you travel a lot, if you are somebody who eats out a lot, then I think giving yourself that 14 weeks of intermittent fasting can really help you boost and reset your system.
So it doesn't have to be like for a year or something.
No, you don't have to be on intermittent fasting for years and years together. I think it's always good to sort of reevaluate your dietary intake based on what your body really needs. So in intermittent fasting, another drawback is that it does limit your options, right? So if you are traveling and if you don't have access to healthy food and then you end up just skipping meals, that also doesn't help.
So you need to decide on your schedule.
100%. And so like I said, your state of mind also is very important when you're doing intermittent fasting.
So what is the minimum time one should go for intermittent fasting? Like what amount of weeks?
Give yourself 2 to 4 weeks, okay, and then maximum 3 months, and then give it a break.
Oh, after 3 months, one should give it a break. For how long?
It's more, I think it's more about reevaluating your personal dietary goals.
Okay.
Because fasting does help you reset, but it can limit your strengthening goals.
Yes.
So if you are looking to strengthen, if you're looking to build muscle, then the eating window doesn't allow you to do that. You could, but when we are trying to strengthen, say for example, if somebody is weightlifting and the person needs 100 grams of protein, you cannot give that 100 grams of protein in just 2 meals, 50 grams, 50 grams, because our body has protein ceiling. It will only utilize a certain amount for muscle regeneration in a given meal. So you have to sort of break it down into 4 different meals. So that requires a whole different planning. So I think intermittent fasting is a good exercise when you're trying to do that reset, when you're trying to sort of detox, your body, because it helps you reset. But beyond that, when you're trying to fine-tune your fitness based on your physical activity levels, especially in strengthening phases, it's going to be counterproductive.
Okay. So, like, how important is the calorie count when we're talking about intermittent fasting?
More than calorie count, it's the quality of your food. I would say it's the nutrient per calorie ratio that is very important. Your calories have to be full of nutrients. Don't rely on empty calories when you are doing the fasting. You don't have to be on a calorie restricted diet to get the benefits. You will still get the benefits as long as your diet is full of antioxidants, an alkaline diet that is not stressing your system. So more than the calories, it's the quality of food that is very important during intermittent fasting.
So the nutrition matters a lot.
Yes, the quality of food matters a lot. Avoid stale food, avoid packed food, avoid food that has a lot of additive in it. Because if you're doing that, you're not letting your body rest. So understand this. Intermittent fasting is not just a way to restrict eating. It's a way to help your body rest. And it can't rest if you're continuously giving it inflammatory foods.
So, like if somebody has done intermittent fasting for a certain period of time, let's take it 2 months or 2.5 months, and they've lost a certain amount of weight, and then when they stop fasting, can it happen that they get back the weight?
Yes.
And would it be what sort of weight? Like they'll gain more fat, or what are we looking at then?
So when you stop fasting and you start eating normally, your glycogen stores definitely get replenished right away, which will be about 1 to 2 kilos of weight depending on your build. But beyond that, then you have to have the right dietary strategies to ensure that you're not ruining your metabolic health. So don't do extremes that, okay, now I did fasting, now I'm going to eat whatever I want. Don't do that. I think the next step after your intermittent fasting phase should be strengthening phase, where you focus on physical activity and you are increasing your food intake to complement that physical activity. So that's the step forward, right? The step forward is not that now I'm going to eat everything
Now I've lost all
my
the weight.
heart desires.
Now I've lost all the weight, I get to eat what I want. So the reward would be more strengthening.
I wouldn't call it reward, but I would say what's the next step? It should be towards strengthening. So strengthening happens by increasing physical activity in a certain proportion, and it should be complemented by your diet.
So when like somebody is into the phase of intermittent fasting, does this give them some mental clarity? Does it have an effect on your stress levels?
Absolutely, it does. So when we talk about stress levels, the initial 3-4 days is when your body might increase its cortisol production, which is a stress hormone. But after that 3-4 day period, your body actually starts making more brain-derived neurotropic factor, which gives you better mental clarity. And that's why I said that intermittent fasting has such an important impact on your hormones. And hormones actually make or break your internal environment and has an effect on your mental health, on your emotional health, and it all ties in with your physical health, right? So intermittent fasting has a direct impact on your mental clarity also for this reason. And you would see that if people who are able to successfully do intermittent fasting while nourishing themselves, they have a better control even on their cravings and hunger hormones. And they would say that, okay, now after the initial few days, I'm feeling more in control, and become more intuitive on what they actually need. So I would ask, every time I'm planning a diet, I always ask my patients or clients that, okay, what are you craving? And surprisingly, after fasting, the foods that they start craving is actually foods that guide them towards right nutrients. It's not the stimulants anymore, So they would say that, oh, I'm actually craving, say, a simple khichdi or a dal chawal. This is what I feel like eating. And I think it's to do with how the fasting changes your hormones and has an impact on your mental clarity.
I think it changes the mindset. If somebody is like literally craving khichdi, I think it's
That's why I always say that if you are giving intermittent fasting, first try. Don't start it when you have very, very hectic weeks, or when you are traveling, or when you know that you need more fueling, because that completely throws the whole purpose and you don't get the benefit, because you're not able to spend that time reflecting on how well are you doing on the fasting journey.
So you can start with that fasting journey when you're more relaxed.
I think when you have more time to reflect on it, that's important, because if you have very hectic weeks and you start intermittent, then you feel more hungry, because the biological need of the body is actually more fueling, not fasting. So you'll see this, when do we fast? Traditionally, it's also associated with certain religious or spiritual practices when you're fasting, right? Yes. And that's when you get the most benefit of it.
I think I ask this question to you every time we are recording, or every time in every episode I'm like, Lovneet, how much coffee can we have? So for intermittent fasting, what is the right amount of caffeine?
I think this is going to be the most disappointing answer for you. Intermittent fasting is one practice where you should limit caffeine intake as much as possible.
Oh God.
To get best outcome. So usually I would say don't exceed your caffeine above 200 milligrams. But during intermittent, I would say don't exceed it over 100 if you really, really have to. Because it's all about calming your system, and caffeine doesn't let you do that.
So just 1 cup of coffee.
If you really have to. Oh my God. I said if you really have to.
So no coffee. Ideally no coffee.
Yeah, ideally no stimulants, no caffeine. If you want, I think sometimes it's the hot fluids that really helps. So during intermittent fasting, this hot fluid really helps in making you feel energetic. So you take water, you put some hot water, put some black pepper in it and lemon in it and sip on that. It will be very, very energizing.
Better than coffee. A good alternative for that.
Yes, try that.
So
Yes.
So have you had any, any of your patients come to you and be like, Lovneet, we're craving sugar, we're craving something cheesy. So what do you suggest at that time?
Initial phases that happens. But once you're past that first 4-5 days of window, it subsides. So initial few days are difficult, but if you keep up with the quality of food, if you keep up with your sleep, your stress levels are under control, then cravings automatically do come under control.
And for those initial days, what would be your plan of action if somebody is having a craving?
Electrolytes. Electrolytes are the best way to combat cravings when you are fasting.
And what would be the example of some good electrolyte drinks?
Water, lemon, salt. Simple.
Simple. You can make it anywhere.
Yes, always available. And instant energizer. If you're fasting, you feel your energy level is dipping, just have water, lemon, salt. That's it.
Okay, that'll help.
Right away.
So when you have patients coming to you and they want to start intermittent fasting, what are those common problems that you look for that people with these problems should not go for intermittent fasting?
Thyroid patients who are looking to conceive for fertility treatments, even diabetics. So that's a little bit of a tricky group. For diabetics, intermittent fasting can help. But if you are taking sugar-lowering medications, then you cannot do intermittent fasting. Again, it has to be done as a team with the doctor, with the nutritionist, knowing what dosage of medication, the carb counting, everything. So these are the groups that definitely need professional supervision.
And since it's PCOD and PCOS is so common nowadays amongst young women especially.
Yes.
So is it advisable for them also to try out intermittent fasting?
So certain studies do show that if you are doing intermittent fasting for a very long time, women might see decreasing estrogen and progesterone, especially if your diet is not well balanced. So that is something that is not desirable when you are trying to attain hormonal balance. Although it also helps in lowering of androgens, which is a good outcome when you're trying to get the right sort of balance for PCOS, PCOD patients. Again, I think it's for hormonal balance, a case can be so unique that you really need to evaluate whether to prescribe intermittent fasting at that point or not. Hormones are directly impacted by intermittent fasting, but if somebody is under a lot of stress, then they might need more fueling sometimes than fasting. And then maybe once they have attained the basic foundation and the patient is de-stressed and sleeping well, and then you could probably put them on an intermittent fast rather than starting with fasting first.
So I think it's more you need an expert advice, you need an expert evaluation.
If you have hormonal imbalance, then I don't think you can just dive into intermittent fasting on your own. Definitely get an evaluation done if it is right for you. In many cases it is, especially for younger women. But if you are in your 30s and 40s, then it can backfire.
I think, Lovneet, this was a lovely episode. You have cut through the noise and you have broken down intermittent fasting for everybody listening. But I want you to give 3 top tips of yours for somebody who's starting out intermittent fasting.
Choose your eating window very carefully and keep it in sync with your appetite, your activity and your sleep. Initial few days are difficult, but keep those days without inflammatory food. So no sugar, avoid caffeine as much as possible, avoid packed food that is full of chemicals. focus on whole foods. So when you are eating, eat fruits and vegetables, soaked nuts, lots of legumes, whole grains, and get the right balance of nutrients. I think the idea is to limit eating window, but not compromise on how much protein you're taking, how much fat you're taking, because when you do this on your own and you're just simply cutting out a meal, then you're also cutting out an opportunity to nourish. So make sure you have the right plan of action.
Thank you so much, Lovneet. It was so informative.
Thank you.